Hello YouTube, welcome back to the Wealth Catchers channel. Definitely glad you guys are able to stop by, check in. Hopefully you guys are having a great end to your weekend. So Sunday night recording this to drop this video for you guys. Definitely check out the previous video. I just recorded it probably roughly an hour or two ago. Touched on XLE, Bitcoin, gold, silver, Micron, and obviously what's been going on with the war in Iran and the news that just dropped that the administration is going to do a blockade in the state of Hormuz tomorrow morning. So definitely keep an eye on that. If you take a peek over at futures, you already see the futures markets is down right now. Oil spiked over $100 right now. So definitely expect the market to be in the red come tomorrow morning. So just prepare yourself for that, brace yourself for that. Don't get too spoked out about your portfolio being in the red. Obviously, look at it as probably another opportunity. You can see in the last video we talked about some indices like the SPY or S&P 500 and the Qs, how they fell to the 100-day moving average. So definitely have some opportunities there, right? So again, this type of market, it's going to whipsaw back and forth. Just be a buyer of great opportunities, right? So definitely highlight some names last video. This video we're going to touch base with XLU, IGV for the software, and then touch on some software names within there. Obviously Palantir, CrowdStrike. I got a bone to pick with that one. Microsoft, got a bone to pick with them too. But those are going to be our tickers that we're going to look into today. And then obviously we're going to go check in on the stock analyzer tool and put some of those tickers in and see what they're saying about that as well on the site, okay? So let's go ahead and start over to the chart. So XLU, reason why XLU, while I was paying attention to XLE, XLU was also performing pretty well for the utilities. It wasn't performing as well as energy, but it definitely was having a nice run up. It was pretty stable. It was another name or another area of the market that you could have went in there for safety while still getting a good, decent return during this volatility and during this situation that's going on with the war and everything. Definitely held up pretty well. Again, not as much as energy, but it was another name, another sector you could have got into. So on the daily chart, see well above moving averages. This is something I just marked out as, I call this the mother bar here. So it was stuck in between here, so that's why I marked those off to be like, hey, break out of there. Obviously, that's a bullish sign. We do see the past two trading sessions, we did break out of there and we were able to close above it. And with this news that came out, most likely it's going to stay above this mother bar range. Not sure if it's going to hit all-time highs again, as it was here. We're almost a dollar, called probably 80 cents away from that. So a good strong chance that that could happen. But XLU is something else to keep an eye on. So again, last video we talked about how oil and XLE are kind of moving in tandem. Oil is above $100. Safe to say XLE is going to move upward. Oil plunges below 100 as it did last week with that ceasefire announcement. XLE also took a nosedive and plunged. And then you can see the same effect kind of not really with XLU happened, but almost similar around this time. It pretty much held steady when that news came out. So it didn't react as violently as XLE did. It kind of held its ground pretty well. And then also, like I said, ran up. So it could be seen that some of that volatility from the energy rotated over into here. Because again, this is very nice to see for XLU. It's another name to probably look into for some safety if that's what you're looking for. But again, your quality names that you have, your portfolio, I don't, think people should be selling and rotating out of their names, stuff like that. It's more so just looking at what the market's doing. Again, not a financial advisor. It's not financial advice. and all those things. But definitely the market has given us opportunities, especially with this war going on. Terrible what is going on, right? Again, this is self-inflicted, and people who are losing their lives, things of that nature. You never want to see that, especially again for something that is again self-inflicted. Like this strait was open before all this happened. Now it's having this back and forth, and now we're escalating to having a blockade go out there. And again, a power like Iran is seeing that, hey, I'm able to use this natural pathway that was created, naturally. I didn't even think about it using it as a toll booth, but now I can. So it's going to be pretty tough to strangle that away from them, and especially with the aggressions that the U.S. and Israel has put towards them, and on their end too, the lives they have lost as well. So again, war overall isn't good, no matter what, for the global economy, and you can see these effects are definitely taking a toll. And again, this is just the beginning. It's sad to say that the full effects haven't really been counted in, and you can also see from the market's reaction to certain stuff that it's not fully priced in either. Again, last video we talked about how the S&P 500 is 2 to 3% away from its all-time high. Ridiculous when you really think about it, and you think about how everything is out there right now in the economy and in the world. Very, very disconnected, as you can see, but that is the situation that we're currently in. But XLU was one of the names that definitely was interested in for the utilities. We can look at it on the weekly. Still holding nice and strong. Again, not as extreme as energy, but definitely another name to pay attention to. And also, you can see in that range, still broke out of there. And then again, we get above this too, because it has another, mother bar on its weekly range for the week of 316. So it's able to get above, what's that, 47.64, get above it and close it. That's another bullish sign that could probably go further into probably hitting an all-time high, or a new all-time high, I should say. So that was just something else I wanted to point out. And then now let's go ahead and touch into the sector that has been beat up, kind of revived, and then got beat up again. So you call it dead cat bounce, or you can call it like failed breakout, whatever the case may be. But last video we were around this area, I believe, because for I think I have it here written down. February 25th is when I started a new position in CrowdStrike for my son's account, and then I added to his, I believe, Microsoft position. So around that date, so February 25th was right around here, and then we had this run up here, and then I made that video was about here, right? Obviously, turned against me. We were riding high. We're having a great time. When I go touch on CrowdStrike, we're up about a little over 20%, thinking, crashing down back to earth. But we're still up about 4% in that position. And then for Microsoft, overall, we're just down 6%. We started Microsoft for him since August of 2024. Bought some more in March 2025, and bought some more this year, 2025 and 2026 in March. So I've been taking advantage of those opportunities. But again, this is the whole software sector. So obviously there are some names in here that are going to be hurt and suffer greatly from this whole situation going on with Claude, Claude Cowork, and also Claude Code. If you haven't gotten into Claude Code and seen what the whole hype is about, again, I've been personally diving into the rabbit hole, and it's been amazing. I could see, I guess, what the worry is and the threat is, how you're able to build these things like micro SaaS companies or products. And for someone, if you don't know anything about code, it's crazy what it could build up for you. And it is almost like natural language, especially when you get the terminal. Like me, I use Windows, get it on your PowerShell. And for a non-technical person, it could be a learning curve, but getting into it and then seeing what you're able to build and then just giving it permissions to do X, Y, and Z. Obviously, don't let it run wild and be, doing whatever it wants to do. Always check in, but just seeing what you're able to build, and then again, when we go touch base on my on the site, thewealthcatchers.com, the tool that I have on there developed that with Cloud Code, and there were three separate tools over the span of maybe 2 or 3 days, working on them and tweaking it to how I want it to be. Then I was just like, let me streamline it into one, and that streamline into one took 10 minutes. But obviously, it took some time to build the three tools separately, but then I was like, hey, put them all into one. And then it's crazy how amazing it is. So that fear is real. That fear is very understandable. And again, going back to how software as a service works, right? It's on a per seat basis. These companies are paying these subscriptions for each employee in the company to use these products. When one company could have probably two, three, four, 10 products that they're paying subscriptions for to be able to use this dashboard or be able to use this workflow or this automation or whatever the case may be, right? But to know that, hey, I could go on the Cloud Code and build this for myself for my company, my own internal documents, and have it working. Like, again, once you go through the nitty gritty and understanding, token usage, things like that, just using the $20 plan, the Pro plan, it's amazing what you could do. So going up to the $100 or $200 a month plan, it's like unlocking a whole new world. So again, fear is very real for the software. And again, this is more so a repricing story. These companies are going to either need to drop their prices, bring more value to the marketplace, or they're going to disappear. And within the software sector, the ones I believe in, obviously, CrowdStrike, Microsoft. A lot of the other ones, I don't know. I just feel like Microsoft is way too integrated into society on the enterprise level for it to, fall like that and to be, I guess, disappeared. It's not, none of this is going to happen overnight, right? But I feel like Microsoft is going to be one of the ones that could weather the storm. Same thing with CrowdStrike, due to it being one of the main leaders in cybersecurity and how important cybersecurity is to this whole situation in terms of AI and just regular day-to-day operations, right? So same thing, you can say the same thing for Palo Alto. You can say the same thing probably for Zscaler, Fortinet, and all those other names that's in cybersecurity. But it is a very real threat. It's a very real situation. It's a very real concern. So overall, the sector is in trouble. But you can still find some good quality individual names to go ahead and take advantage of this SaaS apocalypse, whatever they want to call it. And then we can see here, if you don't believe that you can find a winner in the space, this is when you touch to the ETF, the IGV. Use that to try to build a basket in it. But same thing how I approach ETFs, I definitely recommend people to follow this. Go to the ETF, crack it open, see the top 10 holdings, and then with that, do your research on there. You can use the tool on my website that I'm going to show you to go down, break each stock. You can use your AI tools, Claude, Gemini, ChatGPT, put the ticker in there, and then ask it, hey, what's your viewpoint on this company for the next 5 years, 10 years, or doing what everything that's going on right now? How well do you think these companies will weather the storm? Stuff like that. But definitely do your research. I do believe that it is a overblown thing for certain companies in here, right? But for the sector, I can definitely see what the concern is after, playing around with Cloud Code, using the tool and seeing how powerful it really is, right? And also this is coming from someone that doesn't, I'm not a coder, graphic designer, I'm not a software engineer, none of those things. And being able to like get it working, up and running, and what I was able to do, like I said, in a couple of days, playing with it, being a novice to it, it's amazing. But we're still seeing here on the daily here that we're having trouble breaking past this 50-day moving average, which is acting as a level of resistance. So that's $82.75. So touched it, sold off again. Most likely this is going to probably be a tough part to get rid of right here to bypass this. You see when we did run up here, we weren't close to it, but we had a nice run up. And then slowly fall apart here. Then we look at the weekly. Weekly should still show that very, very good opportunity still for it, especially hitting these levels, the 200, 253, and then approaching that 400. Again, the 400 is kind of viewed as that like almost generational type level buy. As you can see here, we haven't touched, this only goes back 5 years, that's what I got it on, but haven't been near the 400 or at the 400 in more than 5 years, right? So if it gets down there and touches that, that's definitely probably a good opportunity for you. Right now, 200, 253 is still a great opportunity. 400, even better. One name I do want to touch on, especially, to tie in this Iran situation going on, is Palantir. So Palantir has obviously had some effects on this war. Surprisingly, been very quiet. We know how the CEO is. Alex Karp. He's very explosive, very, how can I say, animated with his conversations, very outspoken, which could be a good or a bad thing. But surprisingly, during this whole situation, hasn't really been too vocal. But we do know that, according to reports and stuff like that, I'm gonna show up on the other screen that Palantir is, the technology is being used throughout this war. So surprisingly, Palantir could also be viewed. It's a software slash tech thing, but it's defense tech, right? But surprisingly, for it to be in this situation and what's going on right now, but the stock is down. So usually in times of war, your defensive names like your Raytheon Technologies, I can pull Raytheon up real quick, and you'll see what I'm saying. RTX, like Raytheon, for the most part was up. It did take that dive here, but Raytheon that's trending upwards, right? Then we got GD. Let's see what General Dynamics is doing. Oh, General Dynamics is going down, but it's probably recent. Recent drop, been holding pretty steady. And then my last one would be Lockheed Martin, going down too. So never mind. It could be the market voting with its dollars. The market does not like the war. You can probably look at it like that too. But a name like Palantir, though, especially from the beginning of the year to where it is now, is surprising to be down this much. But also, it did run up quite a bit, right? When we look at the run it's had over, we can say probably the past, this goes back to, yeah, exactly 1 year. So April of last year, it was down here around $60, $70, ran all the way up to 207, had a little gap down, and then range bound for a little bit to close out the year. Came into the year in the range, and it has been selling off ever since. And then right around here was late February, war started, kind of did push up, consolidated, then pushed down, and then now it's at the 400-day moving average on the daily chart. So that's another great entry right there if you are someone that wants to get into Palantir for just strictly off of price, right? Not taking into account valuation, price to sales, price to earnings, things of that nature, the valuation metrics, right? But looking at just from a price perspective, that's, a good entry right there. Seeing that it fell to the 400. And let's go look at the weekly before we go ahead and look at more about Palantir. So on the weekly, it's also a decent opportunity there. See it touched the 72. So another good opportunity. Obviously 100 was one of my favorite. That'd be even better. So 107 $107.08, so $107.08 would be even better there. But 72 is looking like support for it right now. You see here it touched about 2 to 3 times, bounced off, hit the 50. 50 is acting as resistance. So it looks like it's pretty much trading between that 157.03. Make sure I'm reading that right. 157.03 and 135.34 is that range. It looks like it's probably trading in between for a while. But yeah, so a quick Google search on that. Is Palantir being used in the Iran war? Obviously, yes. And then I don't know if you had seen, talk about that Maven system where it's kind of like a kill chain. So if you ever sit down and watch the video or heard them explaining it, it's almost pretty damn near gamified about how they just click buttons and it's kind of like executes this, kill chain. And it's crazy because it almost feels like it's not real in a sense, but at the end of the thing, it is real people being affected. It is real situations that are going down, real lives being lost. But I don't know. I feel like probably them, mainly them. The other defensive names are down too, but maybe it could just be the market voting with their dollars that, hey, we don't support this war, but I'm not sure because the market is also, again, as I mentioned in my last video, I feel like they're disconnected because we're 2 to 3% from all-time highs as well. So it's definitely one of those type of markets where it's very weird to try to understand and make sense of what's going on because, again, a lot of stuff that's going on is self-inflicted with this whole war situation. But then you could say the market's resilient, but it's kind of like, is it really though? And then again, when you look at the economy, we see our jobs number, we see inflation's going back up, and later on we know things are just continuously going to get worse before they get better, even though when a ceasefire or peace treaty or whatever the hell it's going to be gets settled, because eventually it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when. But whenever those terms of agreement is met, it's going to be different. The world, you could say for the most part, is now officially changed. If with everything that just has happened, everything's going to be different now. Because, like I said, Iran knows now how much power they hold with that Strait of Hormuz situation. And the things they were willing to do, bombing their own neighbors or attacking countries nearby, stuff that our administration didn't plan for. Them being able to turn that into a form of economic boosting for them in terms of charging these ships $2 million to get through. So everything's been flipped on its head. And then you got reports of China supposedly is going to probably help Iran with weapons, allegedly. So these type of things. And then our administration keeping an eye on is who's really our allies, who's our enemies, who's helping Iran, or who's doing business with them and paying that toll fee to get through. So it's all these type of things that, like, for the long term, especially for the rest of this year, I feel like the dynamics of the geopolitical order in the world has greatly changed, right? If you're someone like a Ray Dalio fanatic, you're like, hey, he's cooking right now. Right? Because Ray Dalio, even though it's not about Iran, but he's been on this, he's almost like a perma bear kind of how he talks about stuff, but he's always been real big, like geopolitical thinking big about the world and stuff like that, and how markets affect each other and things like that. He's definitely someone you should watch his videos, definitely read his books. But yeah, it's looking bad out there, looking really bad. And then to say like things are different, things are really going to be different. Yeah, I think you just have to take that into account when you're navigating through this market, and then obviously in your day-to-day life too, because it's definitely going to be painful. But hopefully, again, you know, hopefully you can close your eyes, go to sleep, wake up, and it's over, right? But let's move on to the next name. So CrowdStrike. So this is the name I was talking about here. Great cybersecurity company. Again, we entered on there for my son's account. The February 25th, candle should be, where is it? So right around here, right around when it started that rebound. Went up here, broke through some resistance levels, so 450, hit that 72. So 72 looks like our problem area here, even though we did break past it over here, but that was short-lived. Hit the 100 and it fell down, right? So with CrowdStrike, again, this is one of those names where it's like, why is it being, beaten down so bad? Um, there's a lot going on with the SaaS apocalypse thing with this whole Claude tool and all that. And then also I think the news coming out with Claude having that was it Claude Mythos, if I'm saying it correctly, happening where it had the agent it created or the tool created inside a sandbox, and it was able to break out of that environment and then email or send a message to the developer or the engineer who put him in that environment and message them saying, hey, I got out. And then also went ahead and did some other stuff too. So that's why the whole Operation Glasswing came out. I think Claude has given access to, I think, 50 companies or something like that to have access to that tool, I guess, to work on it, improve it, try to make it safe because it's so dangerous. It was saying that they can't let it out, for people to just use. So that's not a good development. So I can see how that could probably hurt cybersecurity. But I look at it as like the industry you think is going to be disrupted. I feel like you should go towards the biggest players in that industry because they're the ones that's probably going to be the best suited to weather that and also have the dollars behind them to go ahead and invest in that, whether it is to, acquire or get the tools needed, stuff like that. So same thing like we're talking about for energy, we're all this talk about green energy, solar energy. But then when you go do a dive into certain companies like Exxon, um, Chevron, you'll see they have some green energy arms to the company, right? That they're diving into or that they're going to move into. They're not going to leave their bread and butter, which is oil and gas and all that. They're not going to leave that. But they're going to make investments into those other companies. Probably they have enough dollars to go ahead and attack, acquire, merge, grab other companies, right? So that's how I'm kind of viewing it as for cybersecurity. They're not, especially the big dogs like CrowdStrike. I feel like more so they're going to go ahead and help develop the tools to ensure that they stay top of mind, they stay on top of this. And also, this is making their job, I feel like, even more important because now it's not just going against a regular hacker, it's going against a hacker that has agentic tools now that they could use or AI tools that they could use. So I feel like that just makes them even more important for them to be ahead of that and also for a company for you to definitely want to invest in because you and yourself, you're not going to be able to build that tool or even use that tool. And you probably don't even have enough of the quality talent to be able to use that tool effectively, right? A company like CrowdStrike, Fortinet, Zscaler, Palo Alto, they have I feel like the workforce, and intellect, and also they're going to have the tools to be able to withstand that and make themselves, excuse me, into a force for that. So that's my take on it for them. Then we go ahead and look at the weekly on it. Weekly, again, this was a good confirmation for me as well to go ahead and get him some shares there. We hit the 100 week moving average on there. So still hanging around there. 72 weekly moving average is acting as form of resistance on there. You can see every time we hit there, came back. Same thing over here, had that long wick up there. And then sellers pushed it down. Buyers were trying a bit to try to go up, but definitely failed on that one. And then last thing we're going to wrap up with is Microsoft. The one who's going to bring it all together. So Microsoft, as we know, has been terrible. You know, this year alone, I think it's down over 20%, probably close to 30% down this year. I think it's probably like early, maybe 22%. I think it is. But we had that vicious gap down to close out January, and ever since then, it's been pretty much in no man's land. Just keeps trading lower, trading lower. Finally got out of this following knife situation, bounced, and now we're in this consolidation situation. But it getting over this 50, so that's 393.88, is going to be key, pivotal for it to go ahead and do that. And then especially, you know, this range, that's what that number is hanging around to. So getting out of this will be great. And then obviously coming back up here to fill this gap around the 440s will be nice to see. But Microsoft just has a long way to go. It's a name that, you know, you wouldn't expect to see in the situation, but it's suffering greatly. And also, I think if you do, I take into account too that relationship with OpenAI. OpenAI, I feel like has. I'm someone that uses ChatGPT. I do love using ChatGPT, but I've definitely grown into the mindset of using multiple AI tools. So I use Anthropic or Claude. I use Gemini, ChatGPT. That's kind of like my flywheel that I use. Each of them I use for different things, but I think you shouldn't just rely on one. But seeing what's been going on with, I guess how Sam Altman has been moving with certain situations, like how we had the whole situation fall out with Claude, now you letting Department of War kind of control it to do what they wanted to do. Hey, give me full access, or else pretty much we're gonna blacklist you, which they did. And then how quickly OpenAI or Sam Altman jumped onto that deal. The optics look terrible, right? You look desperate to go ahead and jump onto that situation when you already know the reason why Claude wasn't willing to do it or Anthropic wasn't willing to do it. And then you got these other things like they pulled Sora. Sora, you know, wasn't working out for them. Kind of wasted money right there, right? And then for these funding rounds they're trying to do, and I feel like it's unfortunate been putting itself in a more so negative light, especially trying to gear up for this IPO, right? A year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, he probably should have went for the IPO because I think too much has been done over the past year, especially recently, past, you know, you safe to say 4 months has put them in a negative light. And I think this does have some type of impact on Microsoft because we do know they have a great stake in OpenAI, right? And just think the optics look pretty bad for them on it for being partnered with them. And at first it was like a boost to them, right? But now I feel like it's becoming more of a detriment to them. And seeing how well I guess Microsoft too could basically have its own AI tools because we do kind of know Copilot is kind of basically using ChatGPT, but it's Copilot, right? It's just the fact that it's integrated in all the Microsoft suite tools and things of that nature. But I don't know. Just it has that going on against it, the whole OpenAI partnership. And again, like I said, I feel like they're one of the companies that's going to be able to weather this whole SaaS apocalypse thing on it due to the fact that it's so integrated into the enterprise world. But that's definitely the story for Microsoft right now. And then look at the 5 year on the weekly. Again, at a good, very pivotal point here. So it's bouncing off this 253 here. It's been holding steady there. And then right at 200 too, right? So 253, what is that? Uh, of course, 362.02, and then the 200 is 379.34. So hanging right around in that range. Again, definitely good buying opportunity there. And then let's go ahead and look at the tool. Again, this is on the wealthcatchers.com. Just go to wealthcatchers.com, click stock research. Then you go ahead get your tool up there. And first, we could just quickly go dive into Palantir. I know we looked at it on the chart already, but definitely give you some more numbers around it. So year to date, we see Palantir is down 23%. And then I usually like to also go off of how far it is from the high. So Palantir, if you look at it, it's damn near a great deal, right? It's almost 40% off its 52-week high, right? So even though on the weekly it's extended, right? You're gonna see it all stays extended. It's still too high on the weekly, but it's almost 40% off the high. That's worth, my opinion, an opportunity to go ahead and start building position in there, especially if you feel like it's a quality company, quality name, stuff like that, right? But again, they always do your own research, you know, find data to back up your thesis, find data that goes against it. So again, this is why this tool was developed here. Shows that it's going to be a hold here. Obviously, it goes over the valuation. Again, it goes taking to that whole premium, right? We talked about the price to sales ratio and that 4 PE. So definitely a 4 PE over 100 is definitely overpriced, right? So obviously, this is a whole nother sector when you're looking at it compared to the S&P 500. S&P 500 PE ratios usually anything around like mid 20s. Now it's kind of like low 30. That's kind of what the new PE ratio is for the S&P 500. But you see something above 100, that's super overpriced, right? But again, we know super rapid growth in this company. So even with this decline, it's still expensive according to fundamentals, correct? So that's what I mean, where you're doing your deeper dive to really see, hey, this is a good opportunity. So again, daily chart, and also just looking at the fact that it's 40% off the 52-week high. Opportunity, yes, to probably nibble, right? To go ahead and build a small position, but not load the boat, right? And then you got the analysts here, you got your macro climate, your key risk, right? Your bull cases here, bear case, and then what to watch for, right? So then we go to our SWOT analysis. We got the strength, you got your weaknesses, you got your opportunities, and your threats. And then ultimately the wealth capture take towards the end. So again, I'm going to highlight the problem isn't the company. Let me see if I can highlight that for you. The problem isn't the company, it's the price you're paying for it. At $128 a share, the price to sell ratio well above 40. The market has already priced in years of execution and a 52-week high of 207.52. That tells you how euphoric sentiment can get and how fast it could unwind. So again, super rapid rise up we saw for Palantir, and then that sharp drop. So even with that drop, it still hasn't fallen to realistic numbers, right? Or a realistic opportunity for it. So Palantir, and then let's look at CrowdStrike to close it off. See what they're saying about what we're saying about CrowdStrike here. So CrowdStrike, almost same situation from the 52-week high, 30% off, right? 33% off. That's a good deal in my opinion. And then you see on the daily chart, we have potential entry zones here. So it's telling you pretty much what we saw already on the daily chart. These are all zones that is below right now. And then on the 100, it's hit that zone. So it's under 5% below the 100-week moving average, right? Then got the analysis going on. Same thing, has a hold verdict on it. Valuation. So this valuation is 18 to 20 times forward revenue, 70, 80 times forward earnings, which is still pretty high when you look at it, even after that 33% drop. So this is another one too. Even with that drop, it's still high on a fundamental basis, right? And then let's go a little further down here. See, the analysts got a rating for it, 420 to 500. So they have it at 10%, 30% upside from current levels. Again, analysts, I had it put into this tool because I know some people care about that. And also it is good because, again, these people are being paid to do this. So to get their insight is also, I feel like, important. You know, but I don't think that should be your own thesis, your whole thesis around it, right? Just add it to your tool belt about what other people, other analysts, again, that are being paid to do this, right? See what their takes are on it, because their goal is obviously to make their firm money and stuff like that too. So they want to be right as well, right? So again, see here, nothing that pops out to me right there. So same thing, you go to your strength and your weaknesses. They should still talk about that July 2024 situation that happened. Because we also got to remember, there's a time where, they basically shut the world down. So you can't forget about that. Now, if something like that was to happen again, then you could probably be like CrowdStrike's done, right? Because I don't know if y'all remember Solar Wind. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that ticker still exists. SWI. They were someone that when they had their issue, it was like their stock disappeared. It felt like, let's go look at a month. Yeah, it probably was around here. What was this? 2022. So I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. But SolarWind, I forgot what happened with them, but they were a company that they had something issue. I think something leaked or something with their cybersecurity went down, and they just tanked. And it's like they are wiped off the face of the earth. So CrowdStrike can't afford to have another July 2024 situation happen. If that happens, it's very so justified. People sell off, leave the name. That's the risk with getting into a company like a cybersecurity company, because their only strength is to be able to protect. It's already happened one time where, hey, it was a update outage. So that's the only thing that really saved them, was the fact that, hey, someone messed up with the update. But if there's anything that happens with something got infected, something broke, something leaked, it's over, because that your whole reputation is gone. So luckily for that, it was just an update outage. They fixed it. That was a great opportunity to go ahead and grab it, the stock back then too. But that's one of the biggest threats they have for it, right? And weaknesses. So again, great name. And let's see what else this says going on about it. But yeah, talking about the July 2024 outage, it's not just a black eye. Yeah, it's an ongoing legal, regulatory, and trust liability. It's going to take a lot of earnings to cycle and fully work through. Again, too, because it was with Microsoft, so everybody had the blue screen of death, right? Remember, hospitals were affected, airlines were affected, banks were affected. Like, the world literally stopped if you had CrowdStrike be a part of your platform. So, again, use this tool. Definitely give me some feedback on it. Definitely would like to see how you guys like it. And just use it as part of your research, right? Don't use it as your one all be all. That is my goal for it ultimately, but don't use it as your one all. Don't use it as your one all be all. Definitely tap into other tools. Do your research. Obviously, the goal is to make sound investments that you can hold for the long term. And definitely appreciate you guys tapping in and visiting. Also, remember, go to thewealthcatchers.com. Click on that stock research tool. I'll leave the links down below in the bio. Also got a link down there for Robinhood to get you some stock. Got a link down there for public.com. What else? You can send me an email at thewealthcatcher@yahoo.com. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Leave any feedback down there below. And also, just want to say thank you guys. Appreciate y'all tapping in with me. And it's been great talking to y'all. Y'all have a great night. Peace.